What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about why Norwegians are so good at speaking English. So today, I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked, how often do Norwegians speak English? Because all the Norwegians that I've met speak basically flawless English. And this is something that I have absolutely wondered about myself. I mean, I see this all the time on YouTube videos that I watch and in the comments that I get on my videos. Norwegians are so freaking good at English. It is amazing because you have to understand that here in America, it is very, very uncommon for somebody to speak a second language. It's extremely rare. And yet, I feel like all Norwegians basically can do it. So I've really wanted to learn more about the process that Norwegians go through to learn English. When you learn English, I think at a very young age, I imagine that it's something that you have to learn in school. And this person is asking, how often do Norwegians speak English in daily life? How do you learn to speak it so well? Are you guys talking in English in your normal day-to-day life? How do you stay so good at it? That kind of thing. Because the national language of Norway is Norwegian. So I would imagine you're speaking Norwegian. So do you ever, get rusty? Do you need to practice your English? Do you ever forget some of the words? Or do you try to go out of your way to speak English to keep sharp at it, So let's take a look here at some of the comments about this. So it says 0% of the time in casual conversation do we speak Norwegian or do I think I said that the opposite. 0% of the time do we speak English in casual conversation with a Norwegian. We're just comfortable switching over if need be. Okay, so in Norway, if you're Norwegians talking to each other, you're speaking in Norwegian language. Maybe the occasional swear word, that's where you bust out the English if you need a swear word. There might be a few billboards in English, but I would never speak a single sentence of English to another Norwegian for no reason. Interesting. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to know. So in casual day-to-day conversation, you don't speak English. But in this day and age, you're probably on the internet a lot. You're on YouTube. If you're watching this video right now, you're watching an English speaker, which means you probably watch other English speakers or other American content or English speaking content, TV, movies, that sort of thing. Maybe that's where Norwegians, you get most of your experience after school. Is that reasonable to say? In museums and train stations and airports, you'll see English that's meant for foreigners, and most of the signs elsewhere are Norwegian only. English is the working language in most of the global industries, and many will on occasion deal with a non-Norwegian speaker at work or have a friend who's not comfortable speaking Norwegian. But if possible, we will always revert to Norwegian. And that makes total sense to me. That's what I would actually expect. If you are living in another country, you have a national language, your home language, in this case Norwegian, that's what you speak if you're at home and you're just living your normal life. Yeah. If the last non-Norwegian speaker leaves the room, even for a minute, everybody will switch to Norwegian. There is no major English language newspaper in Norway, so it's not like we use the languages interchangeably in Norway. Not at all. Teenagers are mixing in lots of English words into their vocabulary, is a common reason for adults rolling their eyes. Is it like the new age English slang? Is that a thing in Norway? Like troll and riz, skibbity? Yeah, have you heard these things that the Gen Z, the teenagers are saying? Some of that doesn't even sound like English. It just sounds like a language nobody has heard of. We do, however, listen to a lot of English music, okay, and we watch foreign movies and TV shows in their original language with subtitles. This makes so much sense to me. This makes so much sense to me now that in Norway, you're speaking Norwegian all the time, but you're getting exposure to English if you listen to the music or some TV or movies. In addition, lots of stuff on the internet is English only. We also have pretty decent schools where English is introduced early. This is what I thought. And we generally travel abroad a lot. In the end, I think the internet and the lack of Norwegian dubbing in the media is the most important factors. Dubbing is only a kid's thing here. It looks and sounds completely ridiculous to a Norwegian adult. Okay. Like Norwegian dubbing? So if you're a Norwegian adult, you just listen to English stuff. You don't need subtitles, like Norwegian subtitles. Most Norwegians are very, very, very good at English and can just you can just watch an English movie like normal, like no problem. That's the sense I'm getting. It's very impressive. There are lots of things that are difficult to experience if we could only speak our native language. Even when talking with Swedes and Danes, we would get by. Uh, I think quite a few German, French, and Spanish people don't feel they are missing out as much by excluding English. But Norwegians traveling the world are likely better English speakers than average. That's what I think. I think a lot of countries around the world try to promote English and teach English as a second language because English is, it's kind of like they said in this discussion, it's like the world, it's a business language, it's a very, very popular language, and a lot of stuff is done in English, but Norwegians in particular seem to be good at it, like really good, like fluent. And in America, if someone is fluent in a different language, if they're fluent in a different language, that is special. That is like a superpower. That is very unusual. In Norway, being fluent in English seems to simply be expected, normal, which is unbelievable to me. If you come to visit, you'd find the vast majority speak conversational English on par with what you're saying. Some elderly people might not be as comfortable speaking English, but they are far better at it than most other countries. Wow, many of us will say that we're terrible at speaking English. That's funny. In part, due to honestly believing we do, but also due to a Norwegian accent that's more obvious to us. We tend to feel ashamed when speaking We tend to feel ashamed when Norwegians speak English with an obvious Norwegian accent, like Jens Stoltenberg. I mean, I've listened to some YouTube videos with Norwegians. I never care if they have a Norwegian accent. After a while, you actually stop noticing they have a Norwegian accent. As long as I can understand all of the words being spoken, the accent starts to fade away. I don't even notice the accent after a while. So it's definitely nothing to be ashamed about. And you have to understand, as Americans, we are so impressed when someone from another country speaks English. We don't care if you have an accent. We actually expect that you have an accent. We're still impressed. We're still amazed. Like, you're still really impressing us. Whether you have an accent, if you don't have an accent, if you speak English as a second language, no American is going to make fun of you. I mean, Maybe there's some jerks out there who are going to be like, "Oh, you have an accent." Most Americans are just going to be very, very impressed. I'm telling you. He's isn't the worst, but he's pretty bad. Even I will start squirming when I listen to it. Really. I still think it's stupid because we do our most to understand someone speaking English with a Spanish accent, and no one cares about their accent, but we feel ashamed of having a Norwegian accent. I, I, I don't think there's any reason for that, like, at all. A Norwe Most Americans actually think having an accent is really cool because we Americans, we don't think we have an accent, even though we do. Uh, and so we think anyone who speaks English and has an accent, a lot of Americans think it's really cool, actually. If you're a Norwegian and you have a slight Norwegian accent, you might get more attention and maybe even compliments than if you were having no accent. If you just blended in and spoke perfect English, no one would think anything of it. They'd actually think you're American. But if you have a little accent, most Americans are going to be like, "Wow, where are you from? That you know English? That's amazing." That's what I would think. I th- what else? We are miles ahead of most non-native speakers, and we should be proud of that. Absolutely. That was a wow. That was a doozy. That was a very, very interesting insight into what Norwegians think about speaking English. So, in normal life, day to day, you speak Norwegian. That makes perfect sense, of course. But you do speak English to maybe in business, or if you're having a conversation with someone from another country, you're exposed to English through the internet, through movies, TV, music. That kind of keeps you fluent and sharp with your English. Only half of the Norwegians sound Norwegian when they speak English to me. Um, I've met many people and asked some version of, "So where in the States are you from?" Only to learn they were born and raised in Norway. Wow, I mean, yeah, if you speak English, that's amazing. If you have an accent, I don't care. If you speak English and you have no Norwegian accent at all, you're going above and beyond. You're going above and beyond. That's just amazing. That's We start learning English even now in kindergarten at 3 to 4 years old. This is the other thing I wanted to learn about. When in the Norwegian education do you start English, the second language? So, very, very, very young. 3 or 4 years old. Wow. From 6 years old, it's every year for the next 11 years. Wow. I don't know why we don't do this in America. Really. From what I understand, when you are young, when you're a child, that is when you are at your peak ability to learn another language. That is when you're most open to learning another language. So you should absolutely be teaching. So teach your home language, your mother language, like Norwegian. You learn that from when you're born to age 3 or 4. Then you start incorporating the English while you're still young. That's the key. I bet for most Norwegians, it wasn't even that difficult to learn English because you did it as a small child. It's been with you your entire life. That is exactly how you should do it. That makes so much sense. And I wish we did this in America. I don't know what language. That's kind of the tricky part. That's the really tricky part, actually, because what language should Americans learn as a second language? For most other countries, I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant, but it sounds like for the rest of the world, it's pretty obvious that you want to learn English because that's a globally spoken language. It's the most common, it's very important. That's an obvious one. But if you're American, and you speak English by default, what language do you learn? I don't think we've decided that. In America, there's some Spanish speakers. Arguably, what's the other most popular language? It's like Chinese or Mandarin or something, right? But we have no use for speaking like a Chinese language, really, in America. There's no purpose. But at the same time, I think it would be really valuable for us to be able to speak a second language, no matter what that language is. I don't know. I'm just jealous. I don't know. The biggest contributing factor, I believe, to pronunciation and the ability to use English in daily speech is television and music. TV shows in Norway are rarely dubbed over. We hear the English all the time on screen, and you get subtitles from an early age. Absolutely. In America, we are just not doing this. We're listening to things in English in our first language. I've heard this is a good way to learn another language, to watch movies and TV. You got to hear it. You have to listen to the language for it to really sink in. I can confirm I learned 90% of my English through series, movies, video games, talking with gaming buddies. Wow. You get to a point when you're a teenager where you follow the spoken English instead of reading the subtitles. You know you're doing well when the subtitles are gone and you don't notice. This seems like such a cool. Gosh, I just want to know what it's like. I want to know what it's like to just have that inside of you where you have two languages and it's fluent. It's automatic. You can just go into Norwegian or you can go into English. And it's just, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to do this translating inside of your head. It's just fluent, automatic, speaking two languages. It sounds incredible. I'm very jealous. And yeah, I just wanted to know how Norwegians do it, what it's like, really. I speak English at work every day. It's our official working language. Our official working language is Norwegian, but they speak English a lot at work. There's a guest from abroad or a foreign colleague. I watch English TV and movies. I read and write on my computer in English. I also need to speak English when ordering at a restaurant sometimes or a hotel. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. English is necessary for me, a communication skill. So cool. Wow. It's kind of like for Norwegians, because Norway is a small country and it has only like 5 million people, you can only speak Norwegian to so many people. 5 million other people. If you want to unlock a huge part of the world, you got to speak English. That's just kind of a fact of life. And I think that's why Norway has taken this big initiative to make sure Norwegians speak English. It is so cool, such a fantastic idea. It has clearly opened Norwegians up to a huge part of the world learning the English language. I mean, that's the only reason you can even watch this video right now. That's funny. But yeah, this was just a really interesting topic I've wanted to learn more about. I have a huge respect for this ability, and yeah, I love it. So anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. If you're Norwegian, perhaps a comment about your experience learning English, speaking English, how often you use English and what you think about it and Norwegian language and any of that. That'd be awesome to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and learning about Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.